Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by oldschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with Manic Expression, the Comic Book Cast, the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida Facebook page, and for entertainment's sake.
Jackson, Carson City, Juneau, Denver, Raleigh, Austin, Boston. Capital, just one city in every state where the governor and legislators stay out of the way. Got the name, got the fame, the political way. Hey, Capital. Providence, Topeka, Santa Fe, Indianapolis, St. Paul, Jefferson City, Honolulu, Baton Rouge, Harrisburg, Columbia, Augusta, Phoenix, Salt Lake City, Salem, Madison, Cheyenne, I'm thinking Lincoln. Capital, just one city in every state where the shining politicians contemplate our fate, taking aim, making claims in the friendly debate. Hey, Capital.
Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Casual Chats. I'm Patricia and I'm here with a very special guest. He has been in various projects. He's done TV shows, he's done movies, and a whole bunch of other independent projects. You may know him for either being the host of Total Panic or Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. I'm here with Greg Lee. Greg, welcome to Casual Chats.
Thanks a lot, Patricia. I love it. Great to be here.
So, where did you get your influences on acting?
That's a very good question. I think when I was a kid, I used to like a lot of the physical comedians, which I don't consider myself to be one of those. But I always liked those kind of old school guys. Bilaal and Marty was always a big influence on me. Which I was listening to Ricky Gervais one time. He was saying they were a big influence on him too. So I felt good about that. But I always liked those older guys like that. I suppose when I was a kid, Dick Van Dyke was kind of a big deal, and that crowd, So I always liked those kind of guys that kind of looked like they're having a good time,
Yeah, definitely. And even still to this day, those influences still carry out on a lot of people who tend to do a lot of physical comedy.
I think so too, yeah. There's just something really cool about that era to me. I think I heard a guy say one time that a lot of the Looney Tunes were kind of based off old vaudevillian gags. And I think a lot of the guys that started those early movies and early TV, really had that influence too in old vaudeville, which I've always kind of been fascinated by. And I don't know, it's just an interesting link, I think, So, not that I would compare myself to those guys at all, but I think I just always really liked that when I was a kid, especially.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that one of the great things about that is that it's always very universal regarding about what period piece it belongs to. Even if, the cinematography may not look that great, or maybe it's either silent or black and white or something like that, people are able to still gain from it with the way that the characters are able to pull off a lot of their infamous gags or a lot of the jokes that come into it, and everybody just puts in their own little twist on it.
That's a really great point. I hadn't thought of that, but I think you're right on that. It's actually very insightful. Yeah, it's what it reminds me too of that I kind of like, because I always liked the early days of television, the early days of movies, and I try to remind myself that we're kind of living in that era now, like with podcasters and YouTube people, and there's sort of this independent feel of stuff where just people are just trying stuff and doing things and figuring it out and how it works. How does all of this work? How do you monetize? How do you do your thing? How do you learn your craft? And I don't know. To me, it's a very exciting time to be doing what you're doing right now, and what so many of us are doing. And it reminds me. I guess not to remind me because I didn't live through it, but I mean, it makes me think of those times, early TV, early movie times, when people were just kind of figuring things out, and I think that's kind of cool. I know when we started Nickelodeon, Nickelodeon, and back when I started with Nickelodeon, it felt like that kind of era to me too, because there were so many of those shows I did for them that it just kind of felt like we were trying stuff out, and I just think that's really fun and really exciting.
Yeah. How did you get started on working on Nickelodeon?
Well, the first TV job I ever had was, it must have been 87 or 88, I think, and I had been hired to do what they call production assistant work, which is where you just kind of go and get coffee and move cables, and you kind of do all the running around, which is always good because you learn so much. You work for a lot of different people. You paint chairs or whatever they need done, And I was working on this show. The first show I ever got offered was one for CBS called Dr. Fad, and it was this guy that. Do you remember what? I don't know. Do you remember what wacky wall walkers were? Do you remember those? You're too young for that, maybe. But I think they came in like boxes of cereal, or maybe you bought them on their own. But they were like these little gummy plastic things, like octopus, right? Octopi, whatever they say. And kids would throw them against the wall, and then they slowly kind of slime their way down. Did you ever hear about those? They're called wacky wall walkers.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I've heard about those toys. Yeah, you throw them on the wall, and then they just crawl all the way down. Yeah, I've heard about those toys.
Okay, so the guy who made those toys or brought them to the U.S., they gave him a show called Dr. Fad, and it was a really cool show about kids inventing things. And the whole show was about kids inventing stuff. So that's what the show was that I first got hired for. And on that show, they lost their audience warm-up guy, the guy that comes in, entertains the audience, tells them when to clap, takes care of them and all that stuff, which is really good practice for a lot of different things. Anyway, they lost their warm-up guy, so I was just kind of standing there. So they said, well, why don't you try it? And so that's kind of how I got started, if you want to call it show business or whatever. That's kind of the first beginning, was literally because they didn't have anybody to fill that spot. And then I just kind of kept doing that for different shows. And, it was kind of not something I was really planning to do, but I just kind of got asked to do it. Ironically, the guy that was producer of that show, Jim Jenkins, ended up doing a show called Doug for Nickelodeon and ABC, a cartoon that I did the voice of the mayor on years later.
Yeah, we actually had Jim Jenkins as our guest a few years ago.
I think I saw that when I checked out your site. I think I did notice it. Yeah, Jimmy's a good buddy of mine. He was actually in L.A. this weekend. We tried to get together, but we couldn't make it work. But, yeah, he's a good guy. But, he was the guy that first gave me my first break, if you want to call it, I do that audience warm-up stuff. And then I kind of did that for a lot of different shows. And then on one of them, one that you mentioned, Total Panic, I was doing audience warm-up and the announcer job. And they lost their host, one of their hosts on that. And it's kind of the same thing. I was just kind of standing around. They said, why don't you try it? And so I said, okay.
It sounds like a similar story with Fred Newman, in which the original host of Livewire, it didn't work out for the kids. And then when they saw Fred just doing one of his silly gags, it's like, you know what, why don't you be the host?
Why don't you be the host? Yeah, that sounds great. Oh, Fred's a great guy. Yeah, I know him. He's a good buddy. But yeah, it's just, that to me, and I guess that's what I was talking about earlier when we were talking about the early days of TV, early days of radio or vaudeville, or even like now with the YouTube and podcasting and stuff. There's just something really cool about that to me, where you just kind of try stuff and just see if it works. And a lot of it doesn't, and, I didn't know how to do any of that stuff, and had no training in it really, so it was just sort of, that Total Panic show was a 3-hour live show that on Sunday mornings that Nickelodeon did. So it was just, figure it out. We had games and cartoons and interviews and all kinds of stuff. So I always have been very grateful to the producers of that show to have the patience with me to just let me figure out something that I had no business doing. It was interesting.
Well, this looks fun. Listen, let's get over here and get our reviews.
Let's do reviews.
Morgan's been here a little longer. You want to get her
Morgan,
first?
what do you think about this one over here? Turn right
Maybe
around
she
here.
can turn right around.
What do you think about this one?
It's different from other games.
How is it different?
Well, sometimes it works automatic. There are different things, and some things surprise you when you're playing.
Let me ask you, what did you think about the graphics? Did they look better than other video games you've seen?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Some.
Okay, well, that's a good rating from over
Sounds
here.
like she really likes
Let's
it.
check with
When will the kids be able to get this particular game? Do you know?
Well, by the time, actually, it should be shipping right now, so you
Great.
can go to major toy stores and get that.
Now, going in from Total Panic to Carmen Sandiego, what was the story behind that? Because I do know that one of the people who co-created the show was Dana Calderwood, and he also, helped with Double Dare. So was that kind of like your way of getting into being the host because of maybe Dana, or did PBS, saw you from doing Total Panic or Dr. Fad, and they decided to just pick you up from there?
Patricia, I got to tell you, you're really good, man. Not everybody does their homework like you. I have to give you a compliment. You're a very good interviewer. Yeah, all that is absolutely true. Dana, I did meet Dana the first time down in Florida when they opened up the Nick Studios. I worked down there. Total Panic had done its last few shows down there when they opened those up, and then I stayed there for a while. Where we tried to find another show for me to do, and so I did some more warm-up, and we tried some pilots, and nothing was really coming together. And one of the shows I did there was, I think it was the last year of Double Dare, where I did some audience warm-up and some other gags for them, and met Dana and Mark Summers and all that crowd. And I think that definitely, helped, because a lot of the guys that I'd worked for that went on to do Carmen, I'd worked for before, and that absolutely helped. Because when Carmen came, after Total Panic, and we couldn't find another replacement or another show for me down there, then I came back up to New York and didn't really have anything. And about that time is when Carmen was having auditions, and I think they said 300 guys, and then got down to the last three. And I think, again, that, to your point, I think that's something that was helped me a lot, because I know they were looking for somebody that had traveled a lot, spoke a lot of languages, done a lot of television. I really hadn't done any of those things, but I had done a lot of warm-up and television in that angle, and so I think that is what helped with some of those guys. And I worked with Howard Blumenthal before on a show he called Perception, which was sort of a game show that we worked on, and I did warm-up for that as well.
All right. Did you play any of the Carmen Sandiego PC games right before you got the audition, or did you at least hear about the games?
I actually did. In those days, I remember computers, for me anyway, weren't like they are now, and so I know I was aware of it, and I think I had played it a few times, but it wasn't like something that was really huge on my radar. But I did know it was there, definitely.
How was a typical shooting of the episode was like?
Well, when we first started, it was pretty bloody. I mean, it was pretty crazy because we weren't necessarily sure how the show was going to work. We still made up a lot of different rules, and I know the middle section, the middle round there, with the big board and all the loot board crook stuff. That took us a while to figure that stuff out, and it took a while to figure out how the end map was going to work. I think at the beginning, I want to say they had 11 countries in a minute or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was, in the first one, it was like, 45 seconds, you had to get 7 countries, and in the first handful of episodes, you gave the hints to, where the location was, and then afterwards, it was 8 different locations, and they were all split up. And then you just said the location, and then they had to put down the little what you call it? That the markers, yeah, the markers. They had to put down the markers, and if they, got it right, it would make the sound. If they didn't get it right, then it would have the incorrect sound. And then, 2 times you leave the marker where it is, and then they try again. So yeah, it's funny because I remember watching the pilot of Carmen Sandiego, and it started off with you had to, they started off with 125 points, and then they worked themselves backwards because it cost a certain amount of points, to travel, which, interestingly enough, that's how the PC game worked. It's you had a certain amount of hours to find.
I don't even remember that. Wow, you're good. Wow, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, the earlier, I mean, even still to this day, like the mobile game, you had a certain amount of hours that you had to find Carmen Sandiego, and you were given clues to where the location was. And regardless if the place that you went to was right or wrong, they took the points away from you. As in, like, they took away the hours from you, and then you had to find out if the place you went to was right. So that's how it worked in the pilot. And then eventually you just said, you know what, let's just do the points, and then the points just continue going higher, kind of like a regular game show.
Amazing. I have no memory of that whatsoever.
Most people don't, to be quite honest. I mean, I didn't even remember about that because, working on, some of the stuff that I'm doing on my content, I do a segment called From Pilot to Final Product, in which I look at pilots of TV shows and then I compare them to the final TV series. And when I saw the pilot, I was like, I don't remember this.
What a great segment that must be. I have to start listening to your podcast. That's really fantastic. Yeah, but I have no memory. You'd think I would remember that, but I absolutely don't. Those early days of Carmen were pretty wild because we were changing a lot of stuff a lot of times. I do remember that when I was reading the clues for the place, I had to read like 3 clues and then say the place, go to Sierra Leone or wherever it was. And we had a lot of backlash from people, which I think rightly so.
Yes, definitely, because
I
if
was
the
eating up
kids
the kids'
knew...
time. No matter how fast I could read it, it was still eating up the kids' time. Yeah, but as you say, a handful of those, and then we switched that out, because that was not going to work.
Yeah, and you only did that for like a handful of times, and then you just read the countries anyway, so that was a pretty smart move. Going back to the original pilot of how, finding the loot, Warren, and Crook, it's like... you didn't, in the pilot, it didn't matter on what order they found it in. You could have found the Crook, then found the loot, and then found the warrant, and it wouldn't have mattered because the kids would have won anyway.
You're right.
It's funny because even in the PC game, like in the early ones, you still needed to have your clues to prove that you needed to, that's the right person to arrest, so...
wow, you're bringing me back a lot of memories. Boy, I had forgotten about that. That's right. That was one of the things beginning too that changed. It was wild at first, man, because we were changing stuff every day. Sometimes in between shows that we would do it. And the first few shows we did everything pretty much. I don't want to say live, but we did it consecutively. Like we would do all the stuff with the kids at the front. I would go to the chief's office and do that little bit in there, and then we'd go to the second round and then the third round. By the end of the season, of the run, it was like year 3 or so, we figured out that it was easier to do the first 2 rounds, send the kid home, the winner home, and then we bring all those winners back so that we could change maps out. We would do just maps for, 2 or 3 weeks, right? So if you won in round 2, you would go home for a few weeks, and then you would come back. And that was so that we could change maps. We could change the maps easier because those maps were a big hassle to move around and to swap out. So you could do a bunch with North America, a bunch with Africa, a bunch with Asia that way.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Early on we did it all together, but it was really hard to do because then the crew had to change maps like every day or something, and it was hard to do. So when we really started, getting it, where we could do like 5 shows a day, at least the 5 of the first 2 rounds we would do, and then 5 of the last maps we could pull off in a day. It was usually a typical day. Once we got really running where we were like a well-oiled machine, that's how we would do it. Now, the weird thing, Patricia, about that, though, is this happened a couple of times, and one time in particular, you send a middle school kid home, right, for a few weeks, things are going to happen. And so, we'd be at the end of that second round, and I'd say, Chief, tell us where we're going, or whatever it was. And then she'd have that long piece, where she'd talk about the continent or whatever, what they were going to win or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And then you'd see the kid and me running out onto the big map. Well, by year 3 or so, we're running out on that map, several weeks later after the kid already won round 2. Well, middle school kids, things happen. Several weeks. We had kids cut their hair and color their hair. And one time I remember we had a girl who had broke her arm. And so...
Oh, that's right. I remember that one.
At the end of round 2, justified in doing it that way was that these kids are not going to stay the same. Some are going to grow, get sunburned and whatever else. So that happened a few times, but it was just kind of funny.
Oh my gosh! Now I have to rewatch the episode just so I can see that.
Yeah, she was cool about it. I forget what the joke we tried to make about it, but it was. She had a rough run over there because it had a cast on her by the time we got there. It's pretty funny.
Awesome. All right. Now, as a, not only were you amazing in the show, but also, the people who also performed in Carmen Sandiego, such as like Thigpen and the guys from Acapella. What was it like working with them?
Well, all those people, and even all of our crew, everybody on that show, I just say, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had working in any form of any kind. They were just all really professional, really talented, really good, sweet people. And most of those people I still, have contact with just because, they were just really good people. I never had a desire to host a game show or anything like that. That was never in my bag. That's the one show that, to me, I would do again only because it was not really a game show and it was just filled with so many cool, fun people. We got to do little bits and little scenes and little weirdness and everybody was up for it. It was just fun to. It looked like you guys
had so much fun with it. Like all the skits that you would do, and not to mention all the musical numbers. It was kind of like always to me. When I was a kid, I always felt like it was like Double Dare, but more educational. But now that I'm older and doing all this research, it makes a lot of sense. But all the fun things that you would see, like Rockapella singing their songs, or Lynn as the chief. Doing, your banters with you being the goofy one and the chief being all silly, but at the same time, she would also perform, like, her singing as well, or, there was all the skits that she would do.
Just so talented. And, when we would do those, again, like after year one, we called those things G-Los all the time. When I would go to her office, it was called Greg in Lynn's office, G-I-L-O. So they were always referred to as G-Los. What's today's G-Lo? That's, how we would refer to me going to her office. And after year one, she was getting busy with doing some movies and other things, and it was just easier again if we would shoot all of her stuff first thing. So always, for 4 out of 5 years at least, we shot all of her things before we did anything else. So we would come in, she would do all of her voiceover stuff, all of her announcing stuff, and then we would do all the G-Los for the season, just one after the other. And so she was just amazing. I learned so much stuff from her, and so I kind of got to have her by myself, for several days or a week or so, a week and a half or whatever, where it was just she and I messing around and having fun and learning these sketches. And then she would go off, and she would be gone for the rest of the show, and then the rest of us would do the rest of it, while she was gone. But it was a good bunch. It was a good bunch, and there's still a good bunch. I see them occasionally, and of course we lost Lynn a few years ago, which was so sad. But
I know. I remember when I first heard about that. I was really sad.
Yeah. She was just a good buddy. She was just hilarious and always very supportive of anything any of us were doing. She was a little older than us and a lot more experienced, and she was okay to let us again just try some stuff out. She didn't know if we knew what we were doing, so she was cool, man. It was really good.
Oh, Greg, how's the investigation?
It's fine, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Stop that, Greg. It's very irritating. Why don't you go do something, productive?
Chief.
Yeah.
Have you noticed anything different about yourself today?
Gee, I don't know. Here, I don't think so. Why?
Just take a look there.
Oh, my goodness! Oh, what? Why didn't anybody tell me?
Well, I didn't know quite how.
I had no idea. My lipstick was so smeared. This is terrible.
Chief, I'm sorry. That wasn't exactly what I meant. I wasn't talking about that.
You know what?
I don't know quite how to tell you this, Chief, but you've turned into a can of cling peaches.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Well, you know what? Now that you mention it, I do think I see what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Listen, don't let it bother you, Chief. Most cans of cling peaches live happy, productive lives. Just stay away from can openers.
Oh, I am so embarrassed.
Well, besides, probably pass quickly. Matter of fact, as soon as we see you next time, I bet you'll all be gone.
Yeah. I still, I'm not sure I really see what he means, but I do have this strange craving for cottage cheese, small curd, creamy style.
Now, was a lot of the skits that you guys were doing, was it like was it all from a script, or was it kind of like improv?
Pretty much everything was scripted. A lot of the GLOs I helped write, especially by year 2 or 3. We had great writers too. Charles Norlander, Paul Smith, and some others. But then I got to write a lot of those. But then a lot of the other stuff, everything else that happened, the other guys wrote. And yeah, it was all scripted, and it was all as rehearsed as we had time to do. I mean, again, when you're doing 5 shows a day and you have these little bits in there, there's a lot of stuff to remember. So a lot of stuff's on cards. And, we just often didn't have too much time, other than we would kind of block it for camera, and then we would just kind of do it and just see how it goes. And I think that kind of gave it that live feel, and kind of things didn't go right all the time, and we didn't quite get the timing right sometimes, but it was fun. It was you kind of felt like you were doing again live TV to a degree, and it was kind of scary and kind of fun, and you didn't let a lot of mistakes bother you too much, because there was just something else to do. You get on to the next thing. So
Yeah,
that aspect I really miss, because I just kind of like that kind of dangling by a small thread. Kind of, this is a fun thing.
Now, we'll just take a little break from Carmen Sandiego for a bit. So,
okay.
Was it hard for you to do Carmen Sandiego and working on Doug at the same time?
It wasn't too bad, because Doug didn't take up a whole lot of time, and we only did Carmen for a few months out of the year. I want to say 4 months. It seems like it was about that long by the time it was over. And Doug stuff I could kind of work in, when I wasn't doing that. The bigger challenge really was when I was doing 5 shows of Carmen during the day, and then at night I had a job for ESPN called Max Out, which was like one of the early music video shows of guys crashing on skis with rock music. No one's ever seen it, but it was fairly popular at the time. But I would leave Carmen after doing 5 shows, and at night I'd go over to ESPN, and I would do another 2 or 3 shows with them, tape 2 or 3 shows of those at night. That was a hard gig to do. So we would do Carmen in the morning, ESPN at night, and then I would usually travel on the weekends with Carmen to do live shows on the weekends. So there would be several months there where it was 7 days a week, night and day, which I really liked. I thought that was really fun, but it was an action-packed time of life,
Yeah, I mean, I remember whenever the show was over, that you guys would always announce about doing your live shows, and like little snippets of the kids. They would participate as well and stuff like that. I mean, I have to say that out of all the shows that were on PBS at the time, I mean, that was like one of the biggest. It was kind of like a contender that PBS can do fun educational kids game shows just as much as Nickelodeon.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I think you're right about that, too, yeah. And having worked at Nickelodeon and then there, it was interesting to see how they pulled that off. But I thought they did a great job. And, I know people think you're supposed to say this. I say this because I really mean this. But the kids we had, the fans we had on Carmen they were some cool kids, man. I mean, they really, really were. And I'm not one of these people that just likes all kids or all dogs or whatever. Our guys were cool. Our fans were cool. Our contestants were cool, because they were just sort of these smart kids that kind of knew a lot of stuff. And I'll meet them now. They're these 35 years old, 32, whatever they are, and they're still cool, and they still know some stuff. And it's just like one of my favorite things always was whenever I would get to the map with a kid, and we'd go out to the Chiefs thing, and they'd whisper over to my ear. They would say, "I've studied the map upside down." Which I always thought was so cool. Because if you think about it, the kid and I are standing on the map, and they're looking at it upside down. But the kid that was smart enough, to sit there and figure out, you've got to study the map upside down so you don't get freaked out by it when you're standing there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I just thought, that's just a cool kid who can figure that I would have never thought of that. And it
especially
happens time and time again.
especially if they had to get the Africa map. I remember like seeing on like some websites in which they say like the Africa map on Carmen Sandiego. Unless you didn't study it, it was like one of the most brutal things ever.
It was brutal. No, it was totally brutal. Yeah, if you wanted to have a rough, week, because you listed that for a week or so, it was the Africa map. If a kid went on Africa, that kid was a monster. That kid knew what he was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
No doubt
exactly.
about
And for
it.
our younger listeners who are wondering, this is like 1991, so basically you have no internet, and the only way you can be able to study these things is if you had to actually go to your local library and pick up an actual encyclopedia.
Patricia, that's a great point. I hadn't thought of that. You're exactly right. Yes, boy, I take this all for granted. Now, you're right. I remember when, and I think it was in the first year even, just you made me think of something, that our great staff and just all the people, the costumes and the set and everything, I remember the day I came to work and they were just working feverishly on this map. And I said, what's going on? They said, oh, you didn't hear Russia broke up last night. The USSR broke up last night. We got all these new countries we've got to paint into our map that we were doing today. And they had to figure out where it was and what it was called. Because we had to shoot it that day.
Oh, yeah, that's right,
crazy,
because
man.
you have, like, from
it's
USSR to, like, Russia and the Ukraine, and and then
It was
when,
a big deal.
Czechoslovakia, and then it split up to Czech Republic and Slovakia. Yeah, you're right.
You've got it. Yes, you've got it. And it was a major issue for that day. It's like, is this really where this border goes? I think so. And to your point, the internet wasn't then what it is now by any means.
We still take it for granted, but, geez, I mean, especially since... at the end of every single episode, Lynn would be announcing like all of the information was accurate as of the day of this recording. So when I look back at it now, I mean it's completely different.
And which is probably you don't or can't see a lot of reruns of that poor show.
Oh,
because,
that's right. Yeah. The only
Yeah.
way you can be able to watch it is like on YouTube because I don't know, for some reason PBS just hasn't gotten to the bandwagon that people love to see these old shows. I mean,
I know.
it's such a shame. I mean, Disney had just gotten the hints like about a year ago.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're totally right. And I know they know that it is. Like I see Nickelodeon doing a lot of anniversary shows and things like that.
At the time of this recording, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, just yesterday, All That just celebrated its 22nd anniversary, and they had a few of the cast members who were there.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever thought about doing like maybe some sort of reunion panel because this coming September is going to be the 25th anniversary of Carmen Sandiego.
You got to be kidding me. I didn't realize that.
No, I'm not joking. It's true. Like, on September of 1991 was when the show debuted.
Oh, that's amazing. I had no idea.
The same thing with Doug as well. August of 1991 was when Doug debuted it.
Unbelievable.
I know, it's crazy,
Wow.
isn't it?
Yeah, I think they should. I haven't heard a thing about it. Maybe I'll call up Howard Blumenthal and see if anything's going on. I think they should. I think they've got people that would like to hear about that. Definitely.
Yeah, do a panel. Try to see if we can get like maybe Dana or some of the writers or some of the members of Rockapella. I'd go for it. Trust me, they will love it.
Well, thank you. You're very kind.
So, I have a few more questions right before we wrap this up.
Okay, sure.
So, I mean, with all the stuff that you've, done in the past and, all the things that, people associate with you, I mean, what do you take from it? I mean, when people come to you and say, I was a huge fan of this show when I was a kid, or, that show influenced me to wanted to study more geography or something.
I got to tell you, I really feel extraordinarily, and I feel extraordinarily lucky to have any connection with it. I mean, I did my little part for that show, a little bit of writing here and there, but there's so many other huge minds that kind of really made that go and realize that, one of the early criticisms we got, I think people would say, well, you can't teach geography in a 20-whatever-minute show to kids. And our point always was, we're not trying to teach them geography, but if we can inspire them to like it and want to learn more about it, then that's really the best that we can do for this. And I hear grown people tell me that now, and it really does kind of choke me up. It really does make me feel just very honored to have had any part of it, to have been there at all. Because I do know it means a lot to a lot of people, and it means a lot to me. And while I don't feel responsible for it, I don't take credit for it. I'm thrilled and happy to thank them for enjoying it and helping us and being part of loving it like we do, and passing that on to those that were really responsible for making it happen. Even with the game itself, the sprang from, I just think it's such a brilliant thing. And I don't know why they don't do it now, because I think it's still a necessary, needed thing. People still need to know about it. And the smaller the world gets, we've got to know more about one another and what we're about and what we believe and what we go through. I mean, it's getting more and more crucial to realize that we're not the only ones here. There's a lot of people on the planet going through a lot of stuff, and it kind of starts with knowing where that is, what they eat, what they believe, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so it means a lot.
Totally agree.
Short answer, means a lot. Yeah.
I completely agree. I mean, with, Carmen Sandiego, like the PC game, celebrated its 30th anniversary last year, and then they released that new mobile game. So, yeah, I think, with everything that's been going around, with more people being more open to seeing that, there's more to this world than just where we live, and everything that's been going on, and, with how crazy the world's been going, like with Syria and Pakistan and all that stuff. I think it's about time that we have, more openness to that. And who knows, maybe someday it will happen.
I think it should. I think, in America we take a big hit, and I guess rightfully so, for not always knowing. And I love my country, don't get me wrong, but I mean, we take a big hit, and I think rightfully so, for not always knowing, much more outside of our borders of what's going on, and that's not always the case in a lot of other parts of the world.
You know what we should do? I think somebody out there should get a map and go record a whole bunch of people saying, okay, I want you to point out where Uzbekistan is. And if nobody can point it out, then it can show that, there's still people who need to learn about where, the locations are, because, I mean, that's how the show got started in the first place, because I think it was like 8 out of 6 or 7 out of 10 people didn't know where the Pacific Ocean was.
I don't think we're much better than that now. I don't think it's gotten much better.
It's gotten much better, yeah. But I'm just saying, back then, it was, like I was saying previously, like we didn't have the internet back then, so,
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, okay, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think...
I hear you.
So, I mean, who knows? Maybe there are some people out there that would like to know more interesting facts about these locations, because, I mean, I went back and I watched, a lot of your episodes, and there's a lot of interesting facts about the locations that I didn't even know about, and I'm already 30.
Well, I'm way ahead of you on that, because I continually am learning stuff on that, in that regard, too. Because I just think there's a lot to learn out there. It's fascinating. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those shows that you can appreciate both as a kid and as an adult, because... it was one of those shows that I watched when I was a kid, and I was always entertained, and, seeing you and the Chief and Rockapella performing. But then when you get older, you learn about all the educational stuff and about where the locations of the countries are and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's a show that can work on both grounds.
I think you're right. I think you're totally right. I don't know why they stopped doing it. They should still be doing it. They're not good with me, but it still should be happening.
Yeah, well, maybe if somebody is out there listening, and maybe if they want to give it a go, then go for it.
Yes, I support fully.
Yeah, and if they are doing it, get Greg to join.
I support that even more fully.
All right, well, we're going to wrap this up. So, Greg, please, do you have anything to share, like any upcoming projects, or where can people find you at?
Oh, no, right. These days we're back in Los Angeles. My wife and I are both working over at Illumination, working with the Minions, the Minions people, the Despicable Me people, working with those guys over there. So we're just having a good time. And always love to hear from Carmen fans. And Patricia, you do a great job. This has been a real pleasure. I really appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, Greg. And, I want to give a really special thanks to a good Nickelodeon friend of mine, Bilaal Smith, who helped me get in touch with Greg. So I want to give you a special shout out, Bilaal, and I'm going to leave his stuff that you can check out. I highly recommend that you check out the interview that he had with Greg. So I'll leave that in the description box below. And that should be it. Greg, I have to say thank you so much for this opportunity. I mean, I watched you a lot as a kid, and I'm just really happy for you being a special guest. It really means a lot.
It means a lot to me, Patricia. You're very kind, and you're very good at this, and I hope you just keep on rocking with it. You're very good.
Thanks
a lot.
Thank you. And that should be it for this episode of Casual Chats. Let us know in the comments below if you were fans of Carmen Sandiego. Post about what was your favorite thing about it, whether it be learning some new information about countries or watching Greg, Lynn, or Rockapella perform. Please share your stories. And that should be it for this episode. Hope to see you around soon. Thanks for listening.
Well, she sneaks around the world from India to Carolina. She's a sticky-fingered culture from Berlin down to Belize. Take you for a ride on a slow boat to China. Tell me, where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego?
Steal their soul in South Korea, making honey cooked right off from the Red Sea to Greenland. They'll be singing the blues. Well, they never Arkansas her steal. We come from the jungle. Tell me,
where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego?
She go from Nashville to Norway, Ireland to Zimbabwe, Chicago to
Czechoslovakia and back. Well, she'll ransack Pakistan and run a scan in Scandinavia. Then she'll stick 'em up down under and go pickpocket first. She was the missing misdemeanor when she stole the beans from Lima. Tell me, where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego?
Oh, tell me, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Tell me, where in the world is